The only thing my husband, Samuel, whispered to me on his final night was, "Evelyn, whatever you do, don't go to the coastal house. Leave it be." His hand trembled in mine, his eyes filled with urgency, and I promised him. For nearly 4 decades of marriage, I honored his wishes, even when they carried shadows I couldn't understand. But curiosity is a stubborn seed, and at 82 years old, curiosity is all I seem to have left. I broke that promise. And what I uncovered in that house by the sea has shaken everything I thought I knew about the man I loved. Now I finally understand why he fought so hard to keep me away from it. When Samuel passed at 76 from a sudden heart attack, I felt as if someone had pulled the floorboards out from beneath me. I had lost not only a husband but my companion of 37 years, the man who held my hand through every trial and triumph. We raised 2 sons together, sent them off to build lives of their own, and thought we had reached the season of peace. His absence hollowed me, leaving me in a silence that crept through the walls of our modest townhouse in Savannah like a ghost. I busied myself with old church friends, choir rehearsals, and quilting circles, but when night came, loneliness gnawed at me. 2 months after the funeral, Samuel's longtime friend and accountant, Mr. Whitaker, asked me to stop by his office. I assumed it was more paperwork, more signatures, another reminder that life carried on even when I felt stuck in mourning. Instead, he slid a weathered envelope across his desk with my name written in Samuel's bold handwriting. Alongside it lay an iron key, unlike any I had ever seen, long, heavy, with a carved anchor dangling from a brass ring. "What's this?" I asked, my voice fragile. "It's connected to a property on the Carolina coast," Mr. Whitaker explained, his glasses reflecting the lamplight. "Samuel purchased it 10 years ago. He left explicit instructions that you were to learn of it only after his passing." My heart raced. Samuel had never mentioned another house, not once in all our years together. He hated secrets, or so I thought. Yet here was proof that he had been guarding something, and not just anything, a property hidden away by the ocean. Mr. Whitaker cleared his throat. "There is more. Developers have been pressing hard to buy land in that region. They've made several generous offers, but Samuel never entertained them. He seemed intent on keeping the house in his possession at any cost." With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in Samuel's hand, the ink slightly smudged as if written in haste. "My dearest Evelyn, if you are reading this, I have already gone home to the Lord. Forgive me for the years of silence about the coastal house. I swore I would never return there, yet I did. I rebuilt it piece by piece, not as a prison of memories but as a gift. Inside the study you'll find a trunk. The code is our wedding anniversary followed by the word grace, because that is what you gave me every day of our life together. Go there once, Evelyn, before you decide its fate. It belongs to you now, but you must see it with your own eyes. With love beyond the grave, Samuel." Tears blurred my sight. Even in death, Samuel was still revealing corners of his soul I never knew. Why hide a house? Why burden me with secrecy only to reveal it now? Before I could gather my thoughts, Mr. Whitaker added, "There's another matter. Samuel's cousin, Leonard, and his family have begun filing motions against the will. They believe they have claims to the property. They are pressing aggressively because of its rising value." A cold unease swept over me. Leonard had always been cordial at family gatherings, but behind his smile lingered ambition. My instincts told me this was more than sentiment, it was greed. I held the anchor-shaped key in my palm. Its weight pulled me toward a choice I wasn't sure I wanted to make, but my husband had asked me to see the place, and after a lifetime together, I owed him at least that. That night, unable to sleep, I stared at the key resting on my nightstand. By dawn, I had packed a small bag, filled my thermos with coffee, and set out for the Carolina coast. The drive to the Carolina coast stretched longer than I remembered. Miles of winding roads bordered by marshes where herons stood like solemn sentinels and cypress trees leaned over dark waters. My old Buick groaned with each turn, the radio offering only static as if the air itself resisted conversation. I kept glancing at the anchor-shaped key in the passenger seat, the brass charm glinting whenever the sunlight broke through thick clouds. Samuel had carried this secret for over a decade, and I was about to step into it alone. My hands trembled slightly on the wheel, but I pressed forward, curiosity and dread waging a quiet war in my chest. By late afternoon, the coastline opened before me, a stretch of sand that looked both wild and abandoned, waves slapping against the shore in restless rhythm. I slowed as a weathered wooden sign came into view, its paint faded, but still legible, Driftwood Haven. My pulse quickened. This was the place my husband had guarded with such determination, the place he swore he would never let me see. The iron gate was tall, forged with curling designs that reminded me of ocean waves frozen in steel. Rust clung to its edges, but when I placed the anchor-shaped key into the lock, it turned smoothly, as if Samuel himself had oiled it not long ago. The gate creaked open, revealing a long gravel path lined with windswept pines. The car crunched forward, carrying me deeper into a silence broken only by seabirds and the occasional crash of distant surf. At the end of the path, the house appeared, and my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a crumbling shack or forgotten ruin, as I had feared. It was a stately home built of stone and weathered cedar, with tall windows reflecting the gray sky and a wide porch facing the ocean. Despite the years it must have stood here, it looked lovingly restored, the kind of care Samuel always poured into his projects. He had touched every inch of this place. I could feel it. I parked and stepped out, the salty wind whipping strands of my silver hair across my face. The front door loomed, heavy oak with a brass handle polished to a shine. My hands shook as I slid the key into the lock. The door yielded with a sigh, and I stepped inside, bracing myself. The scent hit me first, not musty neglect, but cedar, sea air, and something faintly floral. The foyer opened into a high-ceilinged room with a stone fireplace at its heart. But what froze me in place were the walls. They were covered in framed sketches, every single one of seashells. Conch, scallop, nautilus, tiny spiral shells, all drawn in precise detail, some colored with delicate shades. Tears welled in my eyes because Samuel had never once shown interest in drawing. Yet here was an entire gallery of my lifelong passion staring back at me. I had studied marine biology in my youth, even dreamed of becoming a researcher before marriage, and children pulled me in another direction. It was a dream I buried, but Samuel had remembered. Somehow, silently, he had been building a sanctuary out of the fragments of my forgotten aspirations. My legs weakened, and I sank into a chair by the fireplace, staring at the sketches. Why had he kept this from me? Why spend 10 years creating a shrine to a part of me I had abandoned? On a small table beside the chair rested an old wooden trunk. I wiped my tears and knelt, remembering the letter. With trembling fingers, I entered the code our wedding anniversary, followed by the word grace. The latch clicked open, and inside lay rows of neatly organized journals, their covers embossed with Samuel's initials. Beside them rested a weathered compass, its needle twitching as if alive, and a stack of sealed envelopes bound by twine. I picked up the top journal, opened to the first page, and gasped. Samuel's handwriting filled it, recounting his return to this coastal home, the house where his childhood had been marked by both beauty and pain. He wrote of his father's harshness, of nights hiding in the dunes, of the day he swore never to come back. Yet here in his later years, he had returned, not to relive the wounds, but to transform them. Each journal appeared to be part of a larger story, one he had left for me alone to read. As I turned the pages, a sound shattered the silence, the crunch of tires on gravel outside. My heart stuttered. I rose slowly and peered through a tall window. A black SUV had pulled up behind my Buick. 3 figures stepped out, their features instantly familiar, even from a distance. Leonard, Samuel's cousin, stood in front, taller than I remembered, his expression hard and set. Behind him were his 2 sons, men I barely knew, but recognized by the family resemblance. They strode toward the porch with the confidence of men who believed they owned whatever lay before them. My breath came shallow. They hadn't wasted time. A loud knock thundered against the door, making me jump. Evelyn, Leonard's voice rang out, sharp as a blade, we know you're inside. We need to talk about the house. My hands tightened around the trunk's edge. Every instinct told me to stay silent. Samuel's warnings in his letter echoed in my mind. I backed away from the door, clutching the compass as if it might shield me. The men's voices grew louder, demanding, insistent. But my gaze shifted to the journals spread across the floor, to Samuel's words waiting for me. I knew the answers I sought were not with the intruders on the porch but in the pages my husband left behind. My chest rose and fell with determination. I would not open that door, not yet. I pressed my back against the wall, listening to the pounding grow louder. Leonard's voice carried through the heavy oak door, sharp with frustration. Evelyn, you can't hide in there forever. This property was never meant for you. Samuel had no right to keep it from family. His sons muttered behind him, their voices blending into a low growl of agreement. My pulse thudded in my ears, but my eyes kept drifting back to the journals scattered across the rug. The trunk opened like a chest of secrets begging to be explored. My hands shook as I set the compass aside and flipped quickly through the stack of envelopes bound by twine. The top one bore my name. I tore it open with trembling fingers, and a folded sheet fell into my lap. My dearest Evelyn, the letter began. If the house feels heavy when you first arrive, it's because the past still lingers in its walls. But don't let Leonard deceive you. I bought this property from my uncle in full, long before it was worth anything. He signed it over to me with clear records, and I stored every document safely. The legal proof is here, in the drawer of the study desk. If you are ever pressed, do not fear. The truth is stronger than their greed. I swallowed hard, relief mixing with dread. Proof existed. Samuel had made sure of that. The men outside, their fists now hammering rhythmically, had no idea he had already prepared for their challenge. With careful steps, I carried the letter into the study, a room I had barely glanced at upon entering. It was smaller than the main hall but lined with polished wooden shelves. On the desk rested a silver laptop, its lid closed, and beside it, a vase with a single seashell inside a conch, spiral and gleaming as if freshly plucked from the beach. My breath hitched. Samuel had left too many intentional details for this to be coincidence. I reached for the laptop, opened the lid, and the screen flickered to life. A password prompt appeared. My hands trembled as I typed in the code Samuel had written in his letter, our anniversary, followed by Grace. The screen unlocked, revealing a desktop filled with folders. My gaze caught on one labeled for Evelyn. My finger hovered only a second before clicking. Inside were hundreds of video files, each marked with dates stretching forward for an entire year. My chest tightened. With cautious breath, I clicked on the first fill screen filled with Samuel's face. Younger, healthier, eyes full of life. Tears spilled instantly down my cheeks. "Hello, my love," he said, his voice warm, that familiar smile breaking through. "If you're watching this, then I'm already gone, and you've come here, to Driftwood Haven, despite all my begging you never to step foot inside. I should have known your heart would lead you here." I pressed my hands against my mouth to muffle a sob. Even from beyond the grave, Samuel anticipated my stubbornness. "I've left you a message for each day of your first year without me," he continued. "A year to guide you, to explain what I could not bring myself to say when I was alive. I will start with the truth about why I bought back this house." He lowered his gaze, then looked back at the camera, his tone steady. "I returned here because I wanted to give you something no one else could, a place built from your dreams. You once told me, back in our early years, that you longed for a sanctuary by the sea, a place filled with shells and silence, where you could write your thoughts without interruption. I never forgot. And so, I built this for you." I leaned against the desk, unable to breathe evenly. The pounding at the door had paused, replaced now by muffled arguments among Leonard and his sons. But my eyes remained fixed on the man on the screen. Samuel's smile faltered as he continued. "What Leonard doesn't know is that the property was mine legally. Years ago, my uncle fell into gambling debts and begged me for help. I paid him in full, had every signature notarized, and stored the proof. Leonard still believes the inheritance was his by right, but rights don't erase debts. He will try everything to take this from you. That's why I asked you not to come, because I feared what his greed could stir. The sound of a car engine outside startled me. Through the window, I saw Leonard pacing near the SUV, phone pressed to his ear, his expression tight and agitated. His sons hovered close, their movements restless, like caged animals. My chest tightened as I realized reinforcements were coming. Samuel's voice drew me back. "You will feel angry with me for hiding this from you?" he said softly, as if reading my very thoughts. "You deserved the truth. But I didn't want our final years together to be clouded by conflict. I wanted your memories of me to be free from shadows. Forgive me, Evelyn." I touched the screen, my wrinkled fingers trembling against his face, frozen in pixels. For a moment, the house around me vanished, and I was back in our kitchen, Samuel laughing over a burnt pie, his eyes crinkled with warmth. But the pounding at the door returned, harder this time, jolting me back to the present. "Evelyn," Leonard barked. "We have legal authority. If you don't let us in, we'll come back with the sheriff." My jaw clenched. Fear rippled through me, but beneath it, something fiercer rose. This house was Samuel's gift, his final testimony of love. I would not hand it over to men who saw only dollar signs in its walls. I closed the laptop, drew a long breath, and walked toward the door. The pounding stopped when they heard my steps. My hand rested on the knob, my reflection faint in the brass. My heart pounded in time with the ocean outside. Slowly, I pulled the door open just enough to face Leonard and his sons, their eyes sharp and unkind. "Whatever you believe," I said calmly, voice steadier than I felt, "this house belongs to me, and I will not be bullied into giving it up." Leonard's eyes narrowed the moment my words left my lips. His sons flanked him, broad-shouldered shadows, their presence meant to intimidate. The wind whipped around us, tugging at the loose ends of my shawl as if even nature could feel the tension bristling between us. "Evelyn," Leonard said, forcing a smile that never touched his eyes. "This house has been in our family for generations. Samuel tricked our uncle into signing it over when he was not of sound mind. You're clinging to something that doesn't rightfully belong to you." His voice carried the smoothness of a practiced manipulator, the kind of tone meant to disarm while sliding the knife. His sons nodded in rehearsed agreement, eyes darting past me into the house as if they already envisioned it gutted and sold to the highest bidder. I held my ground. My voice was calm but cut with steel. "This place was purchased legally, Leonard. My husband left proof, and I have it. You will not intimidate me into surrender." His smug expression flickered for just a moment, a crack in his mask. He leaned closer, lowering his tone to a whisper meant only for me. "Do you really think some old papers will hold against the weight of lawyers and developers? You're a widow, Evelyn, alone, vulnerable. Sell the property now while you still can. I'll even make sure you get a generous slice." His breath reeked of arrogance. I felt my hands tremble, but I refused to let him see it. Instead, I shut the door firmly in his face, the latch clicking like a gavel. Almost instantly, the pounding resumed, louder, more aggressive, as if his veneer of politeness had shattered. My heart hammered in my chest, but then I heard the distant wail of a siren approaching. The men fell silent outside. Moments later, headlights swept across the gravel drive, and a county patrol car pulled up beside the SUV. Relief washed over me as an officer stepped out, tall and composed, his badge glinting in the fading daylight. Leonard and his sons rushed toward him, their voices rising in a chorus of complaint, gesturing angrily toward the house. I remained behind the door, listening, waiting. After several minutes, the officer knocked, measured, not threatening. I opened the door cautiously. "Ma'am," he said, introducing himself as Officer Parker. "These gentlemen have presented me with a preliminary court order requesting inspection of the property. I need to ask you to cooperate." His tone was polite, but his eyes betrayed wariness, as if he had dealt with his family before. Leonard crossed his arms behind him, smirking as though victory were already assured. My knees wavered, but Samuel's words from the journal and the video rang in my mind. The desk, the drawer, proof. Officer, I said, steadying my breath, I respect your duty. But before anyone steps a foot past this threshold, I ask that you review these. I hurried to the study, pulled open the drawer Samuel had described, and retrieved a blue leather folder thick with documents. My fingers clutched the folder like armor as I handed it to Parker. He flipped it open, scanning notarized deeds, bank receipts, legal transfers, each page bearing signatures and stamps that left little room for doubt. His brows furrowed as he read, his lips pressing into a firm line. Leonard's smugness faltered, his sons shifting uneasily behind him. These documents appear legitimate, Parker said after a long silence. The deed clearly lists Samuel as sole owner, and the transactions are verified. Unless a civil court rules otherwise, there's no authority here to seize or inspect the property today. His voice carried a note of finality. Leonard exploded. This is outrageous. That woman has manipulated everything. My uncle was deceived, and now she's parading forged papers. His words came out sharp and desperate, but Parker raised a hand, silencing him. Sir, you'll need to take this up through proper legal channels. I won't allow escalation here tonight. As Parker returned the folder to me, a swell of gratitude filled my chest. My husband had seen this exact moment coming and prepared for it with meticulous care. I looked directly at Leonard, my voice calm but unyielding. This is not just a house. It is Samuel's legacy, and I will defend it. His face reddened with fury, veins rising against his temples, but Parker's presence restrained him. He barked at his sons to return to the SUV. They did so reluctantly, shooting me looks that promised this battle was far from over. When the officer finally left, apologetic but bound by protocol, the property fell quiet once again. Shadows lengthened across the wooden floors as night approached. I locked the door, my body sagging with the exhaustion of the confrontation, but inside me, a stronger current flowed. Samuel had prepared me for this war, and though I was old, I was not weak. I returned to the study, reopened the laptop, and clicked on the second video. Samuel appeared again, sitting in a sunlit room I had not yet discovered in the house. His eyes softened as he spoke. If you're still here, Evelyn, it means Leonard has already tried to force his way. I warned you. But know this, I left not just legal proof but something more precious. Walk to the far wing tomorrow morning. There you'll find the conservatory, filled with treasures I gathered for you. That is where you'll begin to understand the depth of what I've built. I closed the laptop slowly, my chest heavy with anticipation. Samuel had woven a map, each revelation leading to the next, each truth layered with love and secrets. Outside, Leonard's SUV roared away into the night, but I knew it wasn't the last I'd see of them. The house hummed with silence, the ocean beyond whispering through the windows. Tomorrow, the conservatory would unveil its truth. Tonight, I slept surrounded by journals, seashell sketches, and the memory of a man who, even in death, was still guiding me step by step. Morning arrived cloaked in the gentle roar of the ocean, the sky painted in pale shades of lavender and gold. I had barely slept, my mind tangled in Samuel's words, in Leonard's threats, in the heavy weight of a house that was no longer just a house but a battlefield. The scent of salt and cedar filled the air as I brewed a small pot of coffee in the unfamiliar kitchen, every polished surface whispering of my husband's unseen hands. Samuel had always been practical, rarely sentimental in life, yet here, every corner pulsed with meaning, with details crafted for me. His spirit lingered in the choice of curtains, the arrangement of books, even the seashell sketches on the walls. And now he was guiding me toward the conservatory, as if preparing a series of gifts long before his death. I sipped my coffee, the warmth steadying my trembling hands, before venturing toward the far wing he had mentioned. The hallway stretched long, its wooden floors creaking softly under my careful steps. Morning light filtered through tall windows, casting golden ribbons across the path. At the end of the corridor stood a door unlike the others, glass-paned, framed by carved wood with tiny waves etched into its sides. My breath hitched as I pushed it open. The conservatory spilled open before me like a secret garden. Sunlight poured through its vaulted glass ceiling, illuminating rows upon rows of carefully tended plants. Ferns cascaded down from hanging baskets, palms reached toward the sky, and in the center stood tables lined with glass cases, housing seashells from across the world. My hands flew to my mouth. Shells I had only seen in scientific journals lay preserved under the cases. A rare golden cowrie, a radiant queen conch, even delicate volutes from distant coasts. Tears blurred my vision. Samuel had not only remembered my abandoned dreams, he had traveled, collected, preserved, and built an entire sanctuary in their honor. A place where the sea itself seemed captured in fragile spirals and iridescent whirls. I wandered slowly between the cases, fingertips hovering above the glass, heart pounding with wonder. This was more than a gift. It was an apology, an offering of devotion that words could never have carried. Among the shells sat another envelope, propped upright beneath the glass of a display. With trembling hands, I opened the case and pulled it free. Samuel's handwriting sprawled across the front, "For Evelyn Day 2." I tore it open, unfolding the letter. "My love, if you are reading this, you have found the conservatory. I built it because I remember the day, decades ago, when you confessed to me your regret at giving up marine biology. You said life had steered you away, that duty and family had claimed your path. I wanted to give you back a piece of that dream. Each shell here, I sought with you in mind. Some I purchased, others I collected with my own hands during business trips. Every one of them is a fragment of the sea, a fragment of you." I pressed the letter to my chest, sobbing softly in the quiet garden of glass. Samuel had known me better than I had allowed myself to know myself. For years, I buried that young woman who once believed she could catalog the world's oceans, who stayed up nights sketching mollusks in her notebooks. And here she was, resurrected in this sunlit room by the man who had loved her enough to remember. My knees weakened, and I sat on a wooden bench among the palms, tears dripping onto the letter. For the first time since Samuel's death, grief gave way to something else. Gratitude, aching and fierce. But peace never lasts long when greed hovers nearby. As I sat in the conservatory, the crunch of gravel outside jolted me. I rose and peered through the glass panels. Leonard's SUV had returned, and this time another vehicle followed, sleek silver sedan, polished and modern. From it stepped a woman in a dark suit, briefcase in hand, her stride purposeful. Leonard greeted her with a handshake too eager, his son standing close, their faces set with satisfaction. My stomach tightened. A lawyer, no doubt. They had wasted no time escalating their claims. I tucked Samuel's letter safely into my pocket and closed the conservatory door behind me, locking it with a small brass key I found hanging nearby. My feet carried me back to the study, where the laptop waited, screen dark but alive with promise. I reopened it, heart hammering, and clicked on the next video. Samuel appeared again, this time seated right inside the conservatory, shells glowing around him. His voice was calm, steady, almost prophetic. "Evelyn, by now Leonard has likely returned, and he may not be alone. He will use lawyers, pressure, manipulation, even try to turn family against you. But remember, this house is yours. I placed every safeguard I could. In the safe beneath the conservatory bench, you will find certified copies of the deed, notarized and sealed. They cannot erase the truth." My eyes darted back toward the conservatory door, my chest tightening with awe at his foresight. Samuel had planned every detail, anticipating every storm. "One more thing," he continued, leaning closer to the camera. "This is not only about property, Evelyn. This is about you reclaiming the parts of yourself you set aside for me, for the children, for everyone else. This house is your canvas now. Let it teach you who you still are." His smile broke, tender and haunting. "I believe in you, even if you've forgotten how to believe in yourself." I closed the laptop, tears streaming, but a flame kindling inside me. Outside, Leonard and his lawyer approached the porch, their voices already rising. The battle was tightening, but Samuel had given me both proof and purpose. This was not simply defense, it was a rebirth. The knock at the door this time was not the desperate pounding of the night before, but a deliberate, calculated rhythm. 3 sharp raps, followed by silence. I stood frozen in the hallway, Samuel's letter clutched in one hand, the weight of years pressing down on my shoulders. Through the tall front window, I saw Leonard and his sons positioned like sentries, and beside them stood the woman in the dark suit. Her expression was unreadable. Her briefcase held firmly as though it contained the power to unravel everything Samuel had built. My hands trembled, but I drew a long breath and opened the door just wide enough to face them. "Mrs. Evelyn," the woman began smoothly, her tone professional, almost courteous. "I'm Attorney Caldwell. I represent the Sterling family in matters concerning this property. We believe there are irregularities in the transfer of ownership that must be addressed immediately." Leonard stepped forward, seizing her paws. "You see, Evelyn, my uncle was not in his right mind when he signed this place away. Samuel manipulated him, and now you're hiding behind forged papers." His words were venom, wrapped in honey, rehearsed to sound righteous. His sons stood behind him, nodding in silent agreement, their eyes darting greedily toward the house behind me. I steadied my voice. "This home was purchased legally. I have the documents to prove it." Officer Parker reviewed them himself. Caldwell adjusted her glasses, unfazed. "Police officers aren't the final authority in property disputes, ma'am. This matter will move to civil court, but until then, we are requesting access for inspection." She reached into her case, pulling out a stack of papers thick with official seals and stamps. Leonard smirked as if victory had already arrived. I scanned the top page through the narrow opening, my stomach nodding at the intimidating language and signatures. But Samuel's foresight burned in my memory. The safe beneath the conservatory bench. Proof beyond question. "I'll consider it," I said calmly, then closed the door firmly before they could respond. My legs wavered, but I pressed my back against the wood, breathing deeply. Their muffled voices rose outside, sharp with frustration. I knew this battle was only beginning. I carried myself quickly down the hallway, back to the conservatory. Sunlight spilled across the shells, their fragile spirals glowing like quiet sentinels. Kneeling before the bench, I found the hidden latch Samuel had described. With a click, a small compartment opened, revealing a fireproof box. My hands shook as I pulled it free and turned the key that lay beside it. Inside were neatly arranged folders, multiple certified copies of deeds, bank records, and notarized statements. Samuel had left me a fortress of proof, every detail airtight, anticipating every scheme Leonard might attempt. But there was something else inside, a smaller envelope sealed with red wax. I broke it open with trembling fingers and unfolded the letter. "Evelyn, if you've found this, then you already know the weight of the fight outside. But there is more you must discover. In the east wing, behind the tall mirror in the hallway, lies another door. I built it for you. What waits inside is not for defense, but for healing. Do not fear what you will find. It belongs to you." I clutched the letter, my heart racing. Samuel had left not just legal weapons but hidden sanctuaries, layer after layer of gifts, woven into this house. My old bones carried me quickly to the east wing. The mirror loomed tall and elegant, its frame carved with seashell motifs I hadn't noticed before. I pressed along its edge, searching, until my fingers found a small latch. With a click, the mirror swung open like a door, revealing a narrow passage lit by soft sconces. My breath caught. At the end of the passage stood another door, its surface engraved with curling waves. I turned the brass handle and stepped inside. The room was bathed in light from high-arched windows. Easels, brushes, and paints filled the space. A fully equipped art studio arranged with meticulous care. Canvases leaned against the walls, some blank, others prepared with base colors. A shelf held jars of pigments, stacks of brushes, and sketch pads. My hand flew to my mouth. I hadn't painted in decades. Not since I traded art school dreams for the practical path of teaching science to help support our young family. I had buried that part of me, convincing myself it was foolish, selfish. Yet here it was, resurrected in vivid color. Samuel had not only remembered my youthful dreams of marine study, but also the quiet passion I abandoned before he ever knew me. On a stool near the window lay a canvas covered with a cloth. With trembling hands, I pulled it away. My breath stopped. It was one of my old paintings from college, a depiction of a stormy coastline, waves crashing against jagged rocks. I thought it lost in one of our many moves decades ago. Tears blurred my sight. Samuel had preserved it, hidden it, and returned it to me in this secret studio. A note was pinned to the canvas. "She is still there, Evelyn, the woman who painted with courage and vision. I built this place so you would never forget her again." I sank into the stool, overwhelmed by grief and love in equal measure. Outside, Leonard's lawyer barked orders, her voice sharp, but I no longer heard her clearly. Samuel's presence filled the studio, his love etched in every detail. He had given me back not just a house, but fragments of myself I thought were lost forever. For the first time since his death, I felt not just sorrow, but a flicker of purpose, awakening deep within me. I stayed in the studio for a long while, the morning sun painting golden stripes across the floorboards as gulls cried above the coast. My hands still clutched Samuel's note pinned to the old canvas, and I felt as if he were standing behind me, whispering courage into my weary bones. For decades, I had been a wife, a mother, a caretaker of others' needs. Now, in this secret room filled with brushes and canvases, I remembered the woman I had once been, the dreamer with charcoal-stained fingers, the girl who believed she could capture the sea on canvas. Samuel had known I had buried her, and he had spent years preparing this resurrection. My grief twisted into something new, strength, but strength was tested quickly. Through the open windows of the studio, I heard new voices mixing with Leonard's harsh tone outside. Peering down the long drive, my stomach knotted. A sleek navy blue car had pulled up behind Leonard's SUV, and from it stepped my granddaughter, Amelia. She was only 23, with her father's sharp chin and my stubborn eyes. She had been away at graduate school, busy with her studies, far from family disputes. But there she was, striding toward Leonard and the lawyer, her backpack slung over one shoulder, listening intently as they spoke. My pulse stumbled. They had reached her too, just as I feared. I hurried from the studio, closing the mirrored door behind me, and made my way to the foyer. The sound of Amelia's voice reached me through the thick oak door. "Uncle Leonard told me you've been hiding this place. Grandma. He said there's money at stake, and that you're overwhelmed. Why didn't you tell me about this house?" Her tone was sharp, demanding, the impatience of youth laced with hurt. My heart broke. They had planted doubt in her, and she was already turning it into anger. I opened the door slowly. Leonard's eyes gleamed at my hesitation. Amelia stepped forward, her brows knit, confusion clouding her usually bright expression. "Grandma, what's going on? Why are you keeping secrets?" Leonard slipped an arm around her shoulder with mock paternal warmth. "She's been manipulated, Amelia. We only want what's fair. This house was meant for family, and we'd be glad to share it with you if your grandmother will finally be reasonable." His words dripped poison, each syllable aimed at slicing the bond between me and my granddaughter. I steadied myself, squaring my frail shoulders. "Amelia, my love, please listen to me. This house was your grandfather's gift. He bought it with his own money, fair and legal. He hid it not to deceive, but to protect us from this very greed you see before you. These men want nothing but profit." Her eyes darted between us, her confusion deepening. "But Uncle Leonard says Grandpa stole it, that the papers don't mean anything." Caldwell, the lawyer, stepped forward, brandishing her stack of documents. "Mrs. Evelyn," she said crisply, "young people deserve transparency. Why not let Amelia review everything and decide for herself?" Leonard's smirk widened. He believed he had cornered me, using my own blood against me. My hands trembled, but then I remembered the fireproof box beneath the conservatory bench. Samuel's foresight was my weapon. "Amelia," I said, locking eyes with her, "come inside. Let me show you your grandfather's truth, not their lies." She hesitated, torn, before stepping past Leonard's grasp. Caldwell frowned, Leonard scowled, and his sons muttered curses under their breath. But I guided her into the house and closed the door firmly behind us. The lawyer protested, but the thick oak muffled her words. I led Amelia down the hallway, my steps slow but determined. In the conservatory, the morning light danced across seashells, glowing like jewels. Amelia's eyes widened, despite her anger. "Grandma, what is this place?" I handed her Samuel's certified deeds, the notarized statements, the sealed records. "This is the truth. Your grandfather built all of this for us. He knew Leonard would come, and he left proof stronger than any lie." Her hands shook as she flipped through the documents, her sharp young mind absorbing each detail. Doubt flickered in her eyes, the kind of doubt that can fracture manipulation. Then I guided her to the safe box and placed Samuel's second letter in her hands. She read silently, lips parting as she absorbed his words. Tears welled in her eyes. "He did this for you," she whispered. I nodded, my voice breaking. "And for you too, my darling. He wanted his family to remember love, not fight over money." She pressed the letter to her chest, her anger softening into sorrow. But outside, Leonard's voice thundered once more, calling Amelia's name, insisting she not be fooled. She stiffened, torn between loyalty and love. I touched her cheek gently. "You have his blood, Amelia. His strength. Trust what you feel in your heart, not the poison outside." Her lips quivered, but she nodded faintly. At that moment, the laptop in the study chimed. Another video had unlocked, dated for that very day. I opened it with Amelia by my side. Samuel appeared, seated in the art studio I had discovered the night before, brushes and canvases glowing in the background. He looked directly into the camera, his eyes steady. "If you're watching this, Evelyn, it means Amelia has arrived. My darling granddaughter, if you're beside her, I want you to know I always believed in you. Don't let greed twist your heart. This house is not about inheritance, it's about remembering who we are. Protect your grandmother. Protect the truth." Amelia gasped, tears streaking her cheeks. The timing was uncanny, almost divine. Samuel had spoken across the veil of time directly to her, disarming Leonard's poison in an instant. She turned to me, her voice breaking. "Grandma, I believe you. I'll stand with you." Relief surged through me like a tide. But outside, Leonard's shouts grew more desperate, more dangerous. The war for this house was far from over. The day grew heavy with tension, the kind that settles into your bones and makes every sound sharper. Leonard's voice outside rose and fell like the ocean tide, filled with fury when ignored, then slick with persuasion when he called Amelia's name again. From the conservatory windows, I could see him pacing, his lawyer scribbling notes, his sons hovering like wolves, too impatient to wait for the hunt. Amelia stayed close to me, the letter still pressed against her chest. Her eyes were red from tears, but her jaw set in the same way her grandfather's once did, whenever he prepared for a fight. It struck me then, Samuel had not only left me strength, but he had passed it into her too, through blood and memory. I knew we couldn't hide in silence forever. They would escalate, just as Samuel predicted. He had built protections into this house, yes, but men like Leonard did not walk away when money dangled before them. They would return with more papers, more officials, more tricks, and eventually, they might come with something darker, anger sharpened into violence. I thought of the police officer from the night before. How neutral his expression had been. How little comfort law alone could bring when family greed turned savage. I needed to be ready, not just with documents, but with conviction. The laptop in the study chimed again. Amelia and I rushed to it, hearts pounding. Another video had unlocked, and when Samuel's face filled the screen, both of us leaned close, as if he might step out and stand with us. He sat in the conservatory this time, shells glowing around him. "If Leonard has not given up yet," Samuel began, his voice calm, "then he is showing his true colors. Do not fear his noise, fear only silence within yourself. Evelyn, this place is yours. And Amelia, if you're watching too, know this. Greed is an illness, but courage is its cure. Stand firm with your grandmother. The law is on your side. But so is love, and love carries further than they can imagine. His smile broke, faint but certain. Check the cabinet beneath the writing desk. There is something there to remind you of who we were, and why you must not surrender. I paused the video, heart hammering. Amelia and I knelt by the desk in the study, opening the lower cabinet. Inside, wrapped in soft cloth, was a leather-bound album. My breath caught as I opened it. Page after page of photographs spilled out our life together. Some I remembered, others I had never seen. There was a picture of me at 25, holding a seashell sketchpad with pride. Another of Samuel carrying both boys on his shoulders at the beach, sand clinging to his hair. And in the center, carefully protected in a plastic sleeve, was a letter written decades earlier, during our first year of marriage. If we ever lose ourselves in the noise of life, it read in Samuel's young handwriting, let us promise to find each other again by the sea. I pressed the album to my chest, tears burning my eyes. Amelia leaned against me, whispering, he knew you so deeply, Grandma. He planned all this for you. Her voice broke. We can't let them take it. Strength surged in me again, fierce and steady. No, child, we won't. Outside voices rose. Leonard had grown louder, more desperate. Through the window I saw him waving papers in the air, thrusting them toward his lawyer, as if sheer volume might turn lies into truth. His sons kicked gravel, restless. Then, to my horror, I saw one of them pull out a crowbar from the SUV's trunk. Amelia gasped. My stomach dropped. They were done pretending civility. I rushed to lock every door and window, my old hands trembling but determined. Amelia helped, her young strength quick where mine faltered. We moved room to room until the house was sealed. The pounding began again, now on multiple sides, fists and metal striking wood. The walls trembled, but the house held firm, built solid by Samuel's foresight. My heart pounded, fear clawing at my chest, yet I felt a strange calm within it. Samuel had prepared me for this moment too. I returned to the laptop, praying for guidance. Samuel's next words filled the room, as if answering me directly. If they turn violent, Evelyn, do not face them alone. There are neighbors, allies I arranged long before it. Call Mrs. Harper at the lighthouse 2 miles down the road. She knows everything and will come. You are not alone, my love, never alone. His eyes softened. Remember, the sea itself resists the greedy hand, and so must you. Amelia squeezed my hand tightly, her voice trembling but firm. We have to call her, Grandma. We can't let them in. I nodded, pulling my cell phone from my pocket with shaky fingers, dialing the number written at the back of Samuel's letter. As the line rang, the pounding grew louder, glass rattling in its panes, Leonard shouting threats of lawyers and courts and power. My heart pounded, but Samuel's words rang louder. Fear only silence within yourself, Evelyn. I would not be silent, not anymore. The phone rang twice before a steady voice answered, tinged with the crispness of the sea breeze. Harper, residence. My throat tightened, but I forced out the words, this is Evelyn, Samuel's wife. He said you would understand. A pause followed, then the woman's tone softened with recognition. Yes, Mrs. Evelyn. He told me you might call one day. Stay calm, I'll be there shortly. The line went dead, but hope sparked in my chest. Samuel had truly thought of everything. Outside, the pounding against the doors grew harsher, Leonard barking orders like a man unhinged. The metallic clang of the crowbar echoed through the house, each blow making the walls shudder. Amelia pressed against me, her eyes wide with fear but her jaw clenched in defiance. They're going to break in, Grandma. I held her hand tightly. Then they will find us ready, child. We are not alone. Minutes felt like hours, until the distant hum of another engine reached us. Through the window I glimpsed the beam of headlights cutting through the mist. Leonard cursed loudly, ordering his sons to keep pounding, but soon a figure appeared at the end of the drive. A tall woman in a heavy coat, her silver hair pulled back, marched toward the house with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where she belonged. Behind her trailed 2 younger men carrying equipment. Leonard stiffened. What is this? He shouted. The woman's voice rang out, firm and commanding. "This is Mrs. Harper. I manage the lighthouse and I was Samuel's trusted friend. He told me about you, Leonard, and your greed. You have no right to harass his widow." Her presence was like steel wrapped in compassion. Leonard sneered, trying to mask his faltering confidence. "This is family business." Harper raised a hand. "Family doesn't beat down doors for money. Now step aside before I call the sheriff myself." Leonard's lawyer tried to intervene, waving her stack of papers, but Harper's men began setting up a camera, recording every action, every word. "We'll send this footage straight to the judge," Harper warned, her eyes narrowing. Leonard's sons muttered curses, their crowbar slipping back into the SUV. For the first time, silence fell, heavy and uneasy. Leonard glared at me through the window, his face twisted with rage. "This isn't over, Evelyn. Not by a long shot." With that, he stormed back to his vehicle, the lawyer and his sons trailing behind. Engines roared, tires spat gravel, and soon their taillights disappeared down the drive. The house exhaled in relief. I leaned against the wall, tears spilling freely as Amelia hugged me tightly. Mrs. Harper entered moments later, her stern expression softening when she saw me. "You're safe now," she said gently. "Samuel asked me years ago to keep an eye on this place. He told me you might need someone when the time came." I sobbed, gratitude overwhelming me. Even in death, Samuel had woven a web of protection, of people and plans, to shield me. After Harper left to alert the local sheriff, Amelia and I returned to the study. The laptop glowed faintly, another video waiting. My hands trembled as I clicked play. Samuel appeared again, his face illuminated by soft lamplight. "If Mrs. Harper has arrived," he said, smiling knowingly, "then the storm has passed, at least for now. I trusted her because she has known this coast longer than anyone. You see, Evelyn, I did not just restore a house, I built a fortress of love around you. You may feel old and frail, but believe me, you are stronger than any of them." His gaze deepened, and his voice lowered. "There is one last place you must see. Go to the basement. Behind the old wine racks, you will find a hidden chamber. It is my final gift, and perhaps the most important. Do not go alone, bring Amelia. What you find there will explain everything I could not say in life." My breath caught. The basement. I had avoided it, afraid of what shadows it might hold, but now my heart pounded with both dread and anticipation. Amelia squeezed my hand, her eyes wide but resolute. "Let's go, Grandma." Together. We carried a lantern down the narrow staircase, each step groaning beneath our weight. The air grew cooler, tinged with salt and earth. At the bottom, rows of wine racks stood against the stone walls, bottles long emptied. Following Samuel's words, I pushed one rack aside, revealing a wooden door almost invisible in the dim light. My heart skipped. The key with the anchor charm fit perfectly into the lock. It turned with a heavy click. I pushed the door open, and the lantern's glow spilled into a hidden chamber. Inside, shelves lined the walls, not with wine, but with boxes, journals, and artifacts. At the center stood a pedestal draped in cloth. My knees trembled as I stepped closer. Amelia held the lantern high, her breath shallow. With trembling hands, I pulled the cloth away gasped. It was a glass case containing a collection of letters bound in leather, alongside a chest carved with seashells and waves. Inside lay Samuel's confession, the truths he had buried deeper than all others. The lantern flickered, shadows dancing along the stone walls as Amelia and I leaned over the pedestal. My wrinkled fingers trembled as I lifted the leather-bound book of letters from the glass case. The cover was worn, its edges softened by years of handling, and when I opened it, Samuel's handwriting stretched across the pages like waves rolling toward shore. "If you are here, Evelyn," the first page read, "then you have carried my burden far enough. It is time you know the truth." My heart thudded as I continued. He wrote of his childhood by this coast, of an uncle who gambled away fortunes, of nights he spent hidden in these very walls listening to storms rage above. He wrote of shame he carried for leaving, for never returning until late in life. and of the promise he made to himself, that he would reclaim this place, not for vengeance, but for love. Amelia steadied me as I turned the pages. Each letter revealed more of his hidden journey, secret trips back to the coast while telling me he was away on business, late-night hours spent restoring rooms by hand, friendships built with locals like Mrs. Harper who swore to guard his secret. But then came words that made my breath catch. "I kept this from you, Evelyn, because I wanted your days with me to be filled with life, not dread. 3 years ago, I learned of the illness that would one day take me swiftly. I chose not to tell you, because I wanted us to laugh, to love, without the shadow of an ending. Forgive me for this, forgive me for robbing you of preparation. But know that every moment since that day, I worked to leave behind something that would remind you. You are more than a widow. You are more than loss. You are still alive." Tears spilled down my cheeks, my chest aching with both love and grief. Amelia wept beside me, whispering, "He did all of this for you, Grandma." But I shook my head gently. "For us, child. For every generation that follows. He wanted us to have more than walls. He wanted us to have truth." At the back of the chamber, another chest waited, its lid engraved with seashells and waves. Together, Amelia and I opened it. Inside lay canvases wrapped in linen, my own paintings from youth, preserved and stored. Alongside them were brand new blank ones, brushes, and pigments, as if Samuel had left me not only my past but my future. A note rested on top. "Paint again, Evelyn. The sea is not finished speaking through you." I fell to my knees, clutching the note to my heart. For years I had convinced myself that age had stolen my purpose, that my role was simply to remember. Yet here was proof that Samuel believed otherwise. He had built not just a refuge, but a mirror of my soul, and even in death, he was pushing me to live fully again. Amelia lit up the chamber with the lantern, her young face glowing with determination. "We'll fight them, Grandma. We'll keep this place safe." I cupped her face, whispering, "Yes, my darling. But we will not just fight. We will create. We will honor him by filling this house with life." Together we carried the letters and the chest upstairs, the lantern casting a trail of light behind us. When we emerged into the main hall, dawn's first light spilled through the tall windows. The ocean roared in the distance, defiant and eternal. Leonard's SUV was gone, but I knew he would return. The difference now was that I no longer feared him. I had Samuel's documents, his allies, his voice guiding me through the laptop, and above all, I had Amelia at my side. The war was not over, but my heart was no longer heavy with dread. It was alive with purpose. That night, as I sat before the laptop once more, another video flickered to life. Samuel looked into the camera, his crooked smile breaking through the shadows. "If you've made it this far, Evelyn, then you know the truth. This house is yours, but more than that, it is you. Protect it, not just from those who would steal it, but from your own fear. Live again, my love. Live for me, for Amelia, for yourself." The screen faded to black, leaving me with silence and a heart brimming with both ache and hope. And now, my dear listener, I turn from the story of my life to you. If Samuel's gift and my journey touched your heart, I invite you to join this family we are building here. Subscribe to this channel and walk with us through stories of love, loss, and discovery. Share your own stories in the comments below, stories of the battles you've faced, of the secrets you've uncovered, of the dreams you thought were lost but still wait inside you. Tell us what you felt, what you learned, and what you carry with you now. This is not just my story, it is ours. Together we can hold each other up, just as Samuel held me, reminding one another that life, even in its final chapters, still has pages waiting to be written.